The first battle of the day is almost always invisible. No shouting, no disaster, no dramatic collapse. Just a quiet room, a tired body, and a hand reaching for the phone before the mind is even awake. Most people think they lose themselves slowly, but that is rarely true. Usually, they lose themselves in fragments, in tiny moments of unconscious surrender, repeated so often that they stop noticing them completely. You open your eyes, and within seconds, the world is already inside your head. Messages, deadlines, news, someone else's opinion, a memory from yesterday, anxiety about tomorrow. Before your feet even touch the floor, your nervous system is already reacting to things you never consciously chose to carry. And after enough mornings like this, a strange feeling begins to grow inside a man. He starts feeling absent from his own life. Not weak, not stupid, not incapable. Just internally scattered. He moves through the day, but never fully arrives inside it. His attention becomes divided. His patience becomes thinner. His word means less to himself. He promises change at night and abandons it again by morning. That is the part most people never say out loud. The real damage is not just distraction. It is self-betrayal repeated so quietly that it begins to feel normal. Because every morning teaches your mind something. Either I command my attention, or anything can command me. And the dangerous part is that modern life trains reaction automatically. You do not have to choose it consciously. Endless stimulation will gladly choose for you. That is why this video is not about motivation. Motivation disappears too quickly. This is about reclaiming the first moments of your mind before the world touches them. Because there are 5 simple words that can interrupt this pattern. Not affirmations, not empty, positive thinking, not magical phrases whispered into a mirror. These words work differently. Each one forces your mind to pause, to remember itself, to return to deliberate action instead of automatic living. And if practiced consistently, they can begin changing the emotional direction of your entire day before breakfast. Not because words are mystical, but because attention is trainable, and most people have unknowingly trained theirs toward chaos. If you recognize yourself in this pattern, leave a like not as applause, but as a quiet decision that today you are willing to stop running from what your mornings have become. Because, in a moment, I am going to show you the first word, and it may be the one thing standing between a reactive life and a deliberate one. The first word is choose. Most people wake up already reacting. Before they fully open their eyes, they rechecking notifications, replaying stress, anticipating problems, or carrying emotions from yesterday into a brand new morning. And after enough repetition, this starts to feel normal. But the Stoics believed something powerful. Between stimulus and response, there is a space, a small one, but enough to change a life. That space is choice, not the choice to control everything, just the choice of how you enter the day. Because if your attention is claimed in the first 5 minutes, the rest of the morning usually becomes recovery instead of direction. Think about how many mornings begin unconsciously. You grab the phone, you scroll, you compare, you rush. Nothing dramatic happens. Yet your nervous system is already tense before breakfast. That is why this first word matters. Choose interrupts. Automation. It reminds you that discipline is not built in giant moments. It is built in small conscious decisions, repeated before the mind drifts back into habit. So tomorrow morning, before touching your phone, sit still for 10 seconds and ask yourself, what do I choose to bring into today? not 10 things. 1. Patience, focus, restraint, honesty. Calm, one clear direction for the mind, because a man who chooses his first thought has a far greater chance of choosing his actions afterward. And that leads to the second word, the one that reveals what is really happening inside you before the day takes control again. Notice. The second word is notice. Most people do not lose control all at once. They lose it gradually, through things they never pause long enough to observe. A rushed breath, a tense jaw, an anxious thought, an impulse to escape silence immediately. And because these reactions happen automatically, they begin ruling the day from the background. That is why awareness matters more than most people realize. You cannot direct a mind you never observe. Many men wake up already carrying invisible pressure. They feel behind before the day even begins. So they rush towards stimulation, coffee, scrolling, noise, work, not because they are energized, but because they are uncomfortable being alone with themselves for even a moment. Notice interrupts that escape, not to shame yourself, to understand yourself. The Stoic approach was never emotional suppression. It was emotional clarity, seeing clearly before reacting blindly. So tomorrow morning, after you say choose, stay still for 30 seconds and notice 4 things. Your breathing, your body tension, your dominant thought, your first impulse. That's it. No judgment, no performance, just observation. Because sometimes the real problem is not exhaustion, it is unconsciousness. A man who notices his inner state early has a chance to redirect it before it becomes behavior. Otherwise, the day begins pulling him unconsciously toward irritation, distraction, avoidance, or emotional reactivity, and most people never even realize when the drift began. But awareness alone is still not enough, because even when you notice the impulse, you still have to decide whether it deserves obedience. And that brings us to the third word, refuse. The third word is refuse. This is where discipline becomes visible, because most mornings are shaped less by what people choose to do, and more by what they fail to resist. The immediate scroll, the unnecessary noise, the urge to check who texted back. The habit of feeding anxiety before the day has even started. People often think freedom means unlimited access, but real freedom includes the ability to say no to yourself. Not harshly, not with self-hatred, with self-respect. There is a man who used to wake up every morning and check work messages before even getting out of bed. He told himself he was being responsible. But the truth was harder. He had trained his nervous system to believe that everyone else's urgency mattered more than his own clarity. So before sunrise, his mind already belonged to pressure. Eventually, he changed one thing. For the first 20 minutes of the morning, he refused all incoming demands. No email, no notifications, no news. Just silence, water, breathing, and preparation for the day ahead. And slowly, something unexpected happened. He stopped feeling mentally chased all the time, because refusal creates space, and space allows thoughtfulness to return. Tomorrow morning, refuse one thing that weakens your attention early in the day. Maybe it's the phone, maybe it's complaining, maybe it's replaying yesterday, frustration before your feet touch the floor. One refusal is enough, because every disciplined life is built on boundaries invisible to other people. And once you stop allowing the first impulse to control you, you become ready for the fourth word. Prepare. The fourth word is prepare. Most people wake up hoping the day will be easy. The Stoics prepared for it to be difficult, not because they were pessimists, because they understood reality. Delays will happen. People will disappoint you. Fatigue will arrive. Someone may speak to you with impatience or disrespect. And when a man expects a frictionless day, every obstacle feels personal. But preparation changes the emotional impact of difficulty. A delayed meeting no longer ruins the morning. An insult no longer controls your mood. A stressful moment no longer shocks your nervous system, because you already made room for imperfection before the day began. This is one of the quiet strengths of Stoic thinking. Calm is easier to maintain when reality stops surprising you. So each morning, prepare for one challenge honestly. Ask yourself, what will probably test me today? Then decide your response before emotion takes over. If I feel stressed, I will slow my breathing. If someone provokes me, I will pause before speaking. If I feel resistance, I will still begin. Preparation is not fear, it is mental readiness. And the strange thing is this: people often spend more time preparing their schedule than preparing their mind. Then they wonder why small difficulties throw them off course so easily. A prepared mind bends without collapsing. And once you prepare yourself internally, the final word becomes necessary. Because clarity means nothing if it never becomes action. Act. The fifth word is act. Because a morning ritual means nothing if it never reaches behavior. Many people spend years consuming ideas about discipline while continuing to live the same way. They collect insight without movement, reflection without proof. But the mind changes faster when the body participates. That is why the first action of the morning matters so much. It becomes evidence. Evidence that your intentions are real. Evidence that your attention is no longer completely controlled by impulse. Evidence that your word still means something to you. And the action does not need to be dramatic. That is another mistake people make. They think transformation begins with intensity. Usually, it begins with consistency. Make the bed. Drink water slowly. Step outside for fresh air. Write 3 honest lines in a notebook. Do 10 push-ups. Start the difficult task for 5 minutes. Small actions done consciously restore self-trust, because every time you act deliberately, you weaken the identity of the man who endlessly delays his own life. Tomorrow morning, after the 5 words, complete one clean action before the world interrupts you. Not later, immediately. The goal is not performance, the goal is alignment. Thought, decision, action. When those 3 begin working together, a man starts feeling internally solid again. And now I want to ask you something honestly. Which of these 5 words do you need most right now? Choose, notice, refuse, prepare, or act. Tell me in the comments which one feels hardest for you and what might change in your life if you actually practiced it tomorrow morning. Most people think their problem is laziness. It usually is. The deeper problem is untrained attention. A mind that has spent years reacting instantly will struggle to stay steady, even when the person genuinely wants change. That is why so many men feel exhausted without understanding why. Not because they are always working, because they are constantly interrupted. Every notification pulls attention outward. Every impulse demands obedience. Every distraction leaves a small mental residue behind. And after enough repetition, the mind loses its ability to stay present for long. Here is the uncomfortable question. Are you truly tired from life? Or are you tired from constantly scattering your attention across things that do not deserve it? Many people wake up and immediately enter consumption mode. They absorb information before forming a single independent thought of their own. Then they wonder why they feel mentally weak by noon. Attention works like muscle and direction combined. Whatever repeatedly captures, it begins shaping your inner world. That is why one practical change matters more than people expect. Do not sleep with your phone within reach. Force intentionality back into the morning. Make awareness slightly easier than impulse. Because discipline is not always about becoming stronger. Sometimes it is about making unconscious behavior harder to repeat. And once attention begins returning to you, something surprising happens. Your mornings stop feeling stolen. So why do these 5 words actually matter? Not because words are magical, because words direct attention, and attention shapes behavior. A single word, repeated consistently, can interrupt automatic thinking long enough for consciousness to re-enter the moment. That is the real mechanism. When you say choose, you remember agency. When you say notice, you observe instead of react. When you say refuse, you create a boundary. When you say prepare, you stabilize the mind. When you say act, you move before hesitation grows. Over time, these words stop being reminders. They become mental pathways. This is how habits are formed in both directions. Repetition teaches the nervous system what to expect and how to respond. Most people already have morning scripts. They just never chose them consciously. Stress, rush, escape noise. This practice simply replaces unconscious commands with deliberate ones. And the important part is not saying the words perfectly. It is attaching them to behavior. That is what makes the ritual real. Tomorrow morning, try saying each word slowly, with one breath between them. Choose, notice, refuse, prepare, act. No performance, no theatrics. Just enough silence to hear yourself again. And in the next part, I'll show you how to turn these 5 words into a complete 5-minute morning protocol. You can begin using immediately. Here is the full 5-minute protocol. Simple, quiet, practical, no complicated routine, no motivational performance. Just 5 minutes before the world enters your head. Minute 1. Sit up without touching your phone. Take one slow breath and say, choose. Decide the quality you want to carry into the day. Patience, discipline, presence, calm. Minute 2. Notice. Observe your body and mind honestly. Are you tense, restless, already anxious? Do not judge it, just see it clearly. Minute 3. Refuse. Identify the first impulse that usually weakens your morning. Scrolling, complaining, avoiding responsibility, replaying stress. Refuse it for the next 20 minutes. Minute 4. Prepare. Think about one difficulty likely to appear today. Then choose your response before emotion arrives. Preparation reduces emotional surprise. Minute 5. Act. Complete one intentional action immediately. Drink water, stretch, write one page. Begin the task you've been avoiding. For 5 minutes something small but real, because action seals the ritual. And here is what matters most. Do not wait to feel transformed. That expectation ruins consistency. The goal is not to become a different man overnight. The goal is to stop abandoning yourself every morning. Try this tomorrow before checking your phone. 5 minutes, that is all. Because sometimes a life begins changing, not through dramatic reinvention, but through a calmer beginning to the day. And some mornings you will fail. You will wake up tired. You will grab the phone automatically. You will rush. you will forget the words completely. That does not mean the process failed. It means you are human. One of the biggest mistakes people make with discipline is believing that one bad morning erases progress. It does. What destroys progress is turning one mistake into surrender. The Stoics understood that self-mastery is not perfection. It is recovery. Returning faster, correcting faster, becoming conscious again faster. A disciplined man is not someone who never drifts. He is someone who notices the drift before it becomes his entire identity again. So when you fail, do not waste energy attacking yourself. Return, even if it is already noon, even if the morning was chaotic, even if you already broke the routine. Pause for one moment and say, "Return now." That simple phrase can interrupt an entire downward spiral. Because many people spend more time punishing themselves for failure than rebuilding momentum after it. And slowly, that shame becomes another excuse to quit. But self-respect grows differently. It grows every time you come back instead of collapsing. Every time you begin again without drama. And eventually, something changes. You stop trusting motivation and start trusting your ability to return to yourself. There is something most people never realize about mornings. Your morning becomes your reputation with yourself. Not your reputation online. Not your image to other people. Your private reputation. Because every morning, your mind asks a quiet question. Can I trust this man to do what he says? And the answer is not built through giant declarations. It is built through small repeated proofs. A man says he wants peace, but begins every day in chaos. He says he wants discipline, but obeys every impulse instantly. He says he wants clarity, but floods his mind with noise before sunrise. After enough repetition, he stops believing his own words. That loss of self-trust is heavier than most people admit. Because once a man doubts himself internally, hesitation enters everything. But the opposite is also true. Every small promise kept repairs something. There was a man rebuilding his life after years of feeling mentally scattered. He did not begin with dramatic transformation. He began with one promise. For 30 days, I will not touch my phone for the first 15 minutes of the morning. That was it. No speeches, no obsession with perfection, just one boundary kept consistently. And over time, he noticed something surprising. He felt calmer, yes, more focused, yes, but more importantly, he respected himself again. Because self-respect is not created by thinking highly of yourself. It is created by becoming someone your own mind can rely on. That is why these 5 words matter far beyond productivity. They are not helping you win the morning. They are helping you rebuild inner solidity. And once a man begins trusting himself again, his entire relationship with life starts changing. So in the end, these 5 words form something much deeper than a morning routine. Choose gives you agency. Notice gives you awareness. Refuse gives you boundaries. Prepare gives you steadiness. Act gives you proof. Together, they interrupt the automatic version of your life. Not instantly, not perfectly, but consistently enough to change the direction of your mind over time. Because the quality of a man's life is often hidden inside small repeated moments no one else sees. How he wakes up, how he speaks to himself, what he allows into his attention, what he refuses, whether his actions follow his intentions. Most people wait for external change before reclaiming themselves internally. But it usually happens in the opposite order. Inner order first, then clearer action. then a different life, and tomorrow morning, before the world reaches for your attention again, you will have another opportunity to decide who enters the day first, your conscious self or your automatic one. Tomorrow morning will probably look ordinary. The same room, the same responsibilities, the same unfinished problems waiting outside your door. But one thing can still change. You do not have to surrender your mind in the first 5 minutes anymore. You do not have to begin the day scattered, rushed, and emotionally claimed by everything around you. You can begin differently, quietly, deliberately, with awareness. And maybe that is what real strength looks like in modern life. Not constant intensity, but the ability to remain internally directed in a world designed to pull your attention everywhere else. So tomorrow morning, remember the 5 words: choose, notice, refuse, prepare, act. Not as motivation, as practice. And before you leave, subscribe if you want this channel to become part of that practice. A place that helps you think more clearly, live more deliberately, and rebuild self-respect one decision at a time. And in the comments, write the one word you will carry into tomorrow morning. Just one. Because sometimes a different life begins with a quieter start to the day.